Oh my goodness, is it time to push the panic button yet? Defense. Defense. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leano. On today's Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast, we are going to talk about whether or not Utah needs to make a trade. What do they need to do? This vaunted defense that we were talking about coming together is suddenly falling apart. We will discuss that next.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making us your first listen every single day. Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leano here with you. And you know what? You might want to listen to every other team's shows starting now to see what defensemen they're willing to part with. We're going to talk about that. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Oh, Robyn. It's just not. I wish I had good news. I wish I had good news, but
we were riding off a high for a long time. You know,
I know.
So many good things happening, and then now so many bad things.
I know. Well, we do have good news. Is that Robert Bortuzzo is at least not expected to miss time, and we got the scare with that in the third period the other day.
When Bortuzzo left the third period against the Anaheim Ducks, we were a little bit afraid. I didn't want to mention anything in the post-game show yesterday because I was like, okay, I'm just gonna hope. Maybe he just left. Maybe it wasn't too bad. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And got the update, and I heard that he's not going to miss much time. He should be good to go before Saturday's game against the Bruins.
But the real concern now is the reports coming out about Sean Durzi, his injury, and it is not good.
It is not good. At first, earlier this week, we told you guys it would be out for the quote foreseeable future or indefinitely. But from our understanding from the reports we've been able to gather, Frank Seravalli is currently reporting that Sean Durzi will be undergoing surgery and will be out an estimated 4 to 5 months.
So 4 to 5 months, November, December, January, February, maybe March. So that's depending on, of course, whatever the recovery time is, and everybody heals different, we know. But
yeah,
Robyn, that hurts. I mean, and now it makes you, if your Utah Hockey Club, need to do something, or this could get away from you really fast.
It really could. We were talking about what the blue line could look like, this summer, right? We had the discussion of what the blue line could look like. We're like, oh, there's Durzi, there's Kesselring, there's Valimaki, there's people, but the blue line is almost non-existent. And then they built the blue line, and now we're back to almost what feels like square one, Tom. Because Marino's still not ready, and now Durzi's not going to be around for a long time. They have to figure out a way to shore up that defense. And they are making columns from Tucson, but is that enough?
Well, no. And Patrick Koch is up from Tucson, but I mean, at this point, I don't really see how you have two choices to make here, right? So the first is, if we look at from a cap perspective, there are now obviously Shea Weber's on IR, and I'm always going to bring that up just because I think it's funny. But Sean Durzi, $6 million, has gone on to IR. John Marino's $4.4 million is now on IR. So in addition to the roughly $8 million cap space you had with those two guys on IR, you have another 10. Marino, last we were told, was weeks. Now that was last week. Weeks to me means probably November at the earliest. Yeah. And then, of course, up front, you got Nick Bukestad, $2.1 million on the IR right now. But here's the thing. With $8 million in cap space, there's a lot of available moves for you, whether it's a trade. Last episode or 2 episodes ago, whatever that was, when I was talking about some of the guys that were still out there, I mentioned John Klingberg, but he's not back soon. He's still recovering from that double hip surgery. Kevin Shattenkirk might be a guy that I really would seriously be thinking about picking up the phone and calling now, even more so than I was a couple of days ago. But there are other defensemen that are out there, and you can make a trade, but how much do you want to give up at this point? Other teams know you're kind of over a barrel defensively right now, Robyn, and I think they're going to want to take advantage of that if you have to reach out and deal for something.
Yeah, I feel like at this point, this is kind of where test for Sean, not just for Sean, but test for Bill Armstrong is really going to come to fruition, right? We're going to actually see how he can handle a scenario like this, how he can handle rebuilding a blue line at this part of the season. It's early in the season via trade without looking too desperate. You don't want to show your cards too soon, because people then they're going to buy into that. They're going to be like, oh, they're going to easily catch on to that. How is he handle it? How is Bill Armstrong going to handle it? So far, in a lot of scenarios, Bill Armstrong has done really admirably. This is a new test for him.
It is, and there's a couple of early to mid-30s defensemen. I was just kind of flipping through to see who's on an expiring contract as a UFA, because you would have to assume whoever Utah picks up, they want the option to either then flip again at the trade deadline if you're getting a Durzi back around the deadline, or someone else. So names that come to mind just looking over this list here: Brian Dumoulin with the Anaheim Ducks. He's 33 on an expiring contract. Braden McNabb, although I don't think I see him coming out of Vegas at all anytime soon. Oliver Shillington kind of came in on a flyer with the Avalanche, and boy, he would have been a nice signing right about now. Brendan Smith, 35 with Dallas. Joel Hanley, 33 with the Flames, although they're off to a hot start, pardon the pun. Oli Mata with the Red Wings. Yeah, he's at $3 million. He's 30 years old. Jeff Petry's 36. But a couple other ones that caught my eye, just to try to go a little more realistic. Travis Hamonic, $1.1 million. He's 34. He's on an expiring deal with the Ottawa Senators, and the Senators might be willing to deal at this point. How about recycling somebody who used to be in the organization, Dakota Mermis with the Leafs, $775 on a 1-year deal. I don't know that Mermis is your answer. Dmitry Orlov with the Hurricanes, he's at 33, but that's 7.75. I don't really think Carolina's getting rid of him either. Jack Johnson's 37. I jokingly mentioned to you before we started the show, 39-year-old Ryan Suter with the St. Louis Blues. I love Suits. Great skater, great guy. So yeah, I just wanted to throw his name out there just for giggles. Hey, here's one for you, Robyn. Who is 39 and in Carolina making $8 million?
Oh, that would be Brent Burns.
That would be Brent Burns. I can't believe Brent Burns is 39 years old. That one's not realistic, but I just wanted to toss it out. But there are some names that are out there, right? Is the point I'm making. There are some defensemen who would be on the affordable side of things. Thankfully, you've got Cole, you've got Bortuzzo. Now you've got Koch coming up, so
there still is a defense.
You're keeping it together, but now you've got really, not a lot of experience with your younger players, and NHL experience, I should say.
At this point, when you have someone like Ian Cole, essentially, and very likely probably we're going to see in this scenario, Ian Cole moving up to be the next side alongside Sergachev on the top pair. That's kind of when we had it. That's kind of where a little bit of the concern comes into, and at least in my opinion, Tom. And we talked about it, right? Like, Cole's probably a little bit towards that middle of the lower pair, but now he's going to be eating top pair minutes. It's we'll see how that goes.
And he was around 19 minutes last year, which is pretty good for a guy in his middle to upper 30s, but he's not eating the 29 minutes a night that Durzi was.
Yeah.
Sergachev is almost at a half hour. Durzi was almost at a half hour. So that's a lot of time you have to replace. And Durzi is a all situations defenseman. So that's the other thing that makes it tough. It's 5-on-5, it's power play, and it's penalty kill. There are different ways you can go about kind of filling those roles. As I mentioned before, maybe you roll 4 forwards, 1D, or 5 forwards on PP2. You redistribute your personnel a little bit there so you can take some of those minutes away. Penalty kill, you just need next man up to step in and make something happen. 5-on-5, obviously you're going to need the pair there. So Robyn, the question becomes, and I think it's something we need to address, do you make a trade?
And that's something that we can certainly discuss right after this. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and yes, even Utah. You can even play and get in on that Prize Picks action straight from Utah. It is, again, I highly recommend it. I got a chance to give it a little bit of a spin earlier this week. Got about it's all $50 in on a win. So I really enjoyed working on it, and it's really intuitive, really easy to go with. If you sign up today, you get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks offers weekly promotions that can really go from big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where each Prize Picks discount selects players and projects them up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. So I want you guys to check it out yourself. Again, you can do so many different things. I did my picks off of some hockey games. You can do yours off of football, off of baseball, off of really anything you want. Just download the app and use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get that $50 bonus instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, that's LOCKEDON NHL to get $50 instantly once you download the app and use that first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. So, Tom, let's get into some more of that possible trade talk. Are we at this point? Are we at this point to try to where Utah is going to do that? We kind of teased it a little bit earlier and said how is that going to be? And I said too, I told you, and I kind of want to get a little bit more on your thoughts, is exactly how Bill Armstrong is going to pull this off, because this is a test for him. This is that new test.
Yeah, it is. And you know what, especially early in the year like this is a tough time for any team to really run into these injury bugs. And that's why I mentioned, and again, I brought back up the guys in the first segment that I did, because that is the situation they're waiting for. And it's unfortunate, but it's a fact of life, and it's a truth in the game of hockey. People get hurt the first couple of weeks in, and those are the opportunities that those players are waiting for. So I think I make those phone calls before I make a trade, before I deal anything. I see if, the possibility of bringing someone in who's sitting waiting for a phone call right now could go over well, because whoever you're bringing in has to be brought in with the understanding that, look, Marino gets healthy, you might be dropping down the lineup. Durzi gets healthy, you might be dropping down the lineup, and then you might be out the door come the deadline anyway as a rental. But if you play well, certainly you have a chance to play your way into being kept, and maybe one of the other guys becomes a rental, right? Who's not to say that a team doesn't come calling for a Cole at the deadline and say, you know what, he's won a cup, we want that guy. So there's a lot of ways to spin the opportunity here. But at the end of the day, Robyn, I think if those guys that are out there waiting don't seem to be a fit, and if you don't really see the answer coming from Tucson, then you kind of have to explore the trade market. And again, teams know you need a defenseman right now. The asking price is going to be a little high early in the season.
It is going to be, especially if there's going to be some uh, in quote inflated stats, so to say. Some of them might be a little bit. It's like, oh well, this guy is like, you want this guy? Well, look what he's doing right now. I mean, come on, it's a small sample size. What do you
Right,
want?
right.
It's gonna happen though. There's gonna be some inflation on there, and it's. I mean, I think that's the kind, and that's one of the reasons why I talked about why it's a test for Bill Armstrong. It's this early in the season, and he has to kind of navigate through all of that, while trying to find somebody who can replace in the long term. And I think that's the crucial thing for me, Tom. Is I think that's that term right there, replace in the long term. In the short term, sure, we can take care of. We can kind of see who in Tucson might be able to, at least shore up while Bill Armstrong works on making a deal. But again, that's only short term. So rotate your guys up from Tucson or do whatever. Bring. You have Koch up right now. Maybe you send them back down, and you bring up Lamoureux, and you send them back down. You bring up Onyebuchi, and you send them back. Like whatever it is, find out who works, in the best scenario based off who you're playing or whatever it might be. You have to figure that out in the short term while Bill Armstrong makes his deal.
Well, the other thing too is that you really don't want to disrupt too much the cohesion in Tucson, because you want to build a winner down there as well. And that's important to these guys to plan a winning product in the American Hockey League, to be able to put that team together and keep it cohesive. I think is important to keep guys playing with their D partner, with their, whatever. I mean, again, this is a unique situation right here. You just lost coming into the season. You've been without Marino now for the first couple of weeks and probably the next couple of weeks. Now you're without Durzi for the next couple of months. And still, I mean, not that Sergachev isn't going to be able to munch a bunch of minutes for you, but it can't all be on him. No. And so I think that again, I mean, we talk about elevating Cole, his role, and Bortuzzo's going to have to be pushed to take some bigger minutes. Some of the other defensemen that we haven't talked about, but the guys who have been there here, the Valley Mackeys of the world, the Kesselrings of the world, are going to have to step up and perform, and really, kind of put themselves into that spot. So I guess that's the question, Robyn. Would you deal with this through making a trade or not? That's still honestly, I would do everything I could to not make a trade.
Yeah.
At this point in the season, I would be trying very hard to get someone who's free agent in the door.
Yeah, if you can do that, if you can get someone off of free agency, that would be a huge win in this scenario, because you don't have to give anybody up at that point. You don't have to go through the inflation that I mentioned, where you get those inflated stats and thus comes inflated value, whatever it might be. You just come up with the guy, give him a number, and hopefully they take it. And in which we've also mentioned is Utah can afford it. They've already had a decent amount of cap space to start off with, and now they get a little bit of extra, especially with Durzi being out for as long as he is going to be.
Right. And I mean, do you call a Giordano, who's easily going to be the oldest player in the NHL, was last season, would be again this season? I mean, it's a tough one right now. And certainly nobody's bending over to help you in the division. They're not like, no. We feel so bad for you, Utah, even in the conference, right? So if you are making a deal, you probably got to look east. No one's given up anything of value right now. So whatever you're getting something that somebody else doesn't want at this point of the year, isn't really using. So, if you're plugging it, it doesn't do you any good to bring in a 5-6 defenseman if you're trying to move somebody up and give up assets for that.
Yeah.
And then you've got to redistribute your minutes anyway. So what good does that do you? Might as well go with call-ups.
I think especially too if like, and this could go multiple different ways. If you're trying to replace a guy like a player who has a similar style as Durzi, or you're trying to find somebody who can fill the minutes. To me, I think it's the latter, right? You want to find someone who can fill the minutes because you already have. This is my opinion. Tom, is you already have a puck moving D man in Sergachev,
Right.
who is and from what we've been able to tell, has a real mean shot. That dude can shoot the puck, without a doubt. But if you can find somebody who can eat top line minutes, but also be a shutdown guy, maybe a shutdown guy alongside him for this period. I mean, I'll take it.
Yeah, it's such a tough place to be right now.
It is
for
a
Utah.
really tough place. It's early in the season, and losing out on an injury for Durzi as this early, it's brutal. And again, as when we were talking about it early at the beginning of this show, Tom, we were going through all that high of the beginning of the season and starting perfect, and then comes the avalanche.
Yeah. Yeah, it looked so good at the start, and everything was going well. It was going their way, and
And it
you know,
snowballs.
you win two big, like very emotional games on the island, and then you go to Madison Square Garden, you win in overtime there, and it hurts. It hurts. It physically it hurts, but it also can make the team just kind of. You don't want to and that's the other thing. You don't want to let the season get away from you right now because you have had a good start.
Yes,
You've taken at least a point in all but one of your games. So that's a pretty darn good start to the season.
that's a fantastic start to the season.
Yeah. So I mean you want to build on that. So
You only do what you can, but what we're going to do is we're going to get some closing thoughts to kind of take a look, try to bring some kind of silver lining, some kind of hope out of this. Because I know some of you Utah fans out there maybe might be feeling the doom and gloom at this point. But we're going to try to stay positive. We always try on this show. We'll do that right after this. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get in a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all in the same place where you place your bets. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet, and you can really put that $5 and put that $200 that you get in bonus bets to anything you like, whether it's the money line, the spread, or total points over under, anytime goal scorer in the NHL, anytime touchdown in the NFL. Really all you want. It's really intuitive. It's got so many great things. Maybe you want to take a bet on whether or not Utah can have a really good bounce back against the Boston Bruins this weekend. You can definitely do that on FanDuel.com. Once again, America's #1 sportsbook.
And you know what? If you're like me, you probably love going to live events. And I mean, I love going to live events. Robyn loves going to live events, whether it's comedy shows, concerts, sporting events, obviously. Well, then you need to check out the Game Time app. They've got a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I used this earlier this summer. I went to Fenway Park to check out a Red Sox game. Great seats just off the field, right behind the third base dugout. Absolutely fantastic. You know what was great about that? I got to see the seats before I sat in them. There were pictures of where it was going to be, and I toggled on the all-in pricing. And what I like about the all-in pricing is it shows you what you're going to pay out the door. Boom. 2 tickets. This is what it costs. No surprises, no hidden fees, none of that. You know what you are paying before you pay it. So I absolutely love that. The seat view is great. The low price guarantee is fantastic. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if it is not the lowest price. And their Game Time ticket coverage means your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time.
All right, Tom. We got a few more minutes on this show. Let's try to. I mean, I'd say it's important to try to stay positive despite all this. And then again, this scenario is like a very like the news that came out about Durzi was probably one of the worst case scenarios we could have gotten for heading into today's show.
Yes.
Because when we heard no timetable, we're like, okay, maybe a couple weeks, maybe a month, then maybe 6 weeks. Who knows?
Sometimes, like when swelling goes down or bruising heals or whatever, things look a little different. You wait a day or so to get an MRI, an X-ray, whatever. Yes, things can change.
Yeah,
but
it didn't. No, it
worse.
did. It did, and it's not. It sucks. Again, it does suck, but we can try to stay hopeful. And I think a lot of the hopeful bit, a lot of the trying to stay optimistic thing for me comes from what you kind of mentioned that already, Tom, is they were already this team has had a fantastic start. The momentum is there. The buzz is still around of the home embrace, the Salt Lake City embrace of this team, the entire state of Utah embrace for this team. They are coming back home for a 3-game stretch for one quick game in Los Angeles and then back again. So 4 of their next 5 games are at home. They can take advantage of that as much as they can, despite being now thin on the blue line, Tom. They could take advantage of that. Take all the energy they can from these home crowds.
Yes. And you know what? It's a fantastic atmosphere. It's awesome. The Delta Center's rocking. It's a party. People like going. I mean, I know there's only been one regular season game at home, but people just love it. And I think they will continue to love it. Like, there's nothing not to love, in my opinion, about going to a hockey game. I love it. But you try to ride that wave, and then you hope that whoever you bring up, and right now it's Koch, but it could be Duda, Lamoureux, Zuber, Onibuchi. We mentioned all these guys who could come up, fill in that hole. And you really, I mean, to me, here's the most positive thing that could happen is before you even end up bringing somebody in, although I suspect they'll have somebody there sooner than later. Maybe somebody just jumps into the void and blossoms, know.
We talked about Maverick Lamoureux on Wednesday's show, right?
I thought had a chance to make a team out of camp, honestly.
I would love to see what Lamoureux has, and honestly, I think a really awesome scenario is if he ends up and he just shines and fits perfectly like a glove, right, with this team.
Which is asking a lot of a 20-year-old.
It is asking a lot,
but it's been done before, so why not you?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, sometimes it's all you need is that, like, you get that cup of coffee, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, this is actually really not. This is fantastic. I think we're gonna keep you here.
All you need is glove.
Yeah. There we go.
You know what? I think that, the nice thing that Utah does have going for it too, since we're going to pick on some positives here, is the fact that they have been drafting and developing.
Yes.
So this is not out of the ordinary. Although I will say, boy, now how big does it look, that deal for Sergachev? Because if you didn't make that deal, you're way out there on an island. But you do have a legitimate number 1 NHL defenseman. So it's not all doom and gloom, right? It is, you still have a number 1 guy. You just need to surround them and bump everybody up, and then make sure that your 5-6 pair is anchored solidly enough where you can get through it. And you may rotate him through. You may dress 7D. You could dress 7D. That could be a way to address this as well. So there are ways,
Yeah.
and I think that they'll be all right.
I mentioned how a good chunk of the next few games, with the exception, I think just one. I think only one game remaining in the month of October is an away game, right? Just the LA Kings game. The rest are home games. But the point I was trying to make is, by the end of this month, if you're still holding on to the momentum, the hope is, at the very least, that John Marino is back and can help fill at least that one of those gaps. And then one of those gaps is taken care of, and then things can start to, I wouldn't say go back to normal, because again, missing Durzi is a massive gap, but bringing in a guy like Marino, the hope is that it's like he's in midseason form. I mean, again, that's a huge ask, but at least, very least, gets close to it.
And for Marino, in his case, you have to hope that the updates start coming a little more frequently and are a little more targeted, as opposed to week to week. So probably, I think once we creep into November, if he is getting any closer, we're going to start to hear some noise about that. So hopefully we do what it's, we got 2 weeks left. 2 weeks left in October. So probably, maybe around Halloween, we start to hear a little bit.
Yeah, we'll keep an ear out around, as we get closer, and we'll let you guys know the moment we hear an update of really all that, because we want you guys to know. We want you guys to feel optimistic about this team. We want you guys to continuously feel the buzz all season long.
I agree. And despite what is happening here as far as the injury bug, there's a lot of ways that this can happen. So I will be interested to see what path Bill Armstrong's going to choose. And he's already working the phones. It's just who's going to be the guy who comes in.
We'll really have to see. It's to go just be a waiting game up until that point. But any final thoughts before we close things off?
Well, they need to get an exterminator in that locker room and get rid of this injury bug. So that's all I got to say. I mean, hey, that's an excellent pest control plug for anybody who wants to step up and sponsor us.
There we go. Anyway, so that's going to be it for today's episode of the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to leave us a review, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already, wherever you get your shows, including on YouTube, Sirius XM, ad-free on Amazon Music. We're getting very close to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So everyone, if you're not subscribed yet, this is a great time to do it. Help us get over that, get to that 1,000 hump. And then as we're writing this high of this show, being your number one source for Utah Hockey Club news and just news reactions, all of that right here on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. Don't forget to interact with us on social media too. We're on X, Instagram, and Threads at @LO_NHL Utah. I am personally at Robyn_Leano. Tom Callahan is at Callahan on air. Interact with us, ask a question, we might answer right back, or in a future episode of the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. And once again, don't forget to go ahead and join our text club at 801-760-9033, 801-760-9033. Send us a text. We'll give you guys the link to get signed up, and you get access to a lot of exclusive content, audio content. We got like Tom's takeaways after every game. We're going to get a lot of more things coming your way. You guys will definitely want to be a part of it. You won't get it. You won't get this anywhere else unless you are Insider Text Club members. So if you want to get access to some exclusive content or weekly mailbag, join the Insider Text Club today. Your first 14 days are always free. Well, thanks again, everyone, once again, for listening to today's episode, and we'll see you guys next time.